Like my politics, I went from right to left there. Welcome in Horse Racing Happy Hour, Road to the Preakness edition, starting in late December, of course. December 28th edition. Dan Illman from the Daily Racing Forum joining us. Appreciate him very much. And, of course, our guy from the Maryland Thoroughbreds. His name is John Piasek, joins us at their off. You can find Dan online at DRF_Dan Illman. If you are listening to this one, you're missing out. You can check us out on Spotify, see all of our videos. And, of course, we have a YouTube channel that you can check out as well. Boys, welcome back in. It's been a minute. We hung out for Maryland Million Day, of course. I saw Dan at Santa Anita for the Breeders' Cup. How was your overall Breeders' Cup trip there, Dan?
Very nice, actually. Had a very good day on Friday. Had a pretty fair day on Saturday. But, you know, it's Breeders' Cup. There's really no such thing as bad days. We've got some really great horse racing that week. And I'm looking forward to 2024. Looking forward to this little mini road to the Preakness.
There you go. We'll get going with those as well. John, anything? I talked to Steve Kornacki. Apparently your mom, big fan of Steve. Before you guys came on to this show here, we talked Eclipse Awards because we happen to both be Eclipse voters. Horse of the Year for John Piasek was what?
I am firmly and unequivocally on Team Idiomatic. You know, she had a full campaign this year, won, I think, 5 graded stakes, won a major Mid-Atlantic Stakes in Delaware Handicap.
Oh.
Won the Breeders' Cup to staff, danced every dance. And you know what? We always talk about, nowadays horses don't race as much as they should. We always reward horses who have, light campaigns and kind of take it easy. Here's a chance to reward a horse who did run well a lot. I mean, I know Cody's Wish is kind of the sentimental choice, but sure. I am firmly anti-sentimental. I am 100% on Team Idiomatic, and I am scared to be disappointed.
That is the first use of the term anti-sentimental on this show, Dan Illman. Tell him why that's a bad pick.
It's a terrible pick. I mean, I don't want John to be the guy, though. You know, the guy that has the one vote for Idiomatic for Horse of the Year. I don't want that to happen. But listen, I understand what you're saying. It's nice to see these horses run and champion older female, but it's either Cody's Wish or White Abarrio. You could probably go either way. They faced each other twice. White Abarrio whipped Cody's Wish up at Saratoga, and Cody's Wish beat White Abarrio in the Metropolitan Handicap. I guess I would go with Cody's Wish, but I think there's no wrong answer between those two.
Yeah, I was going to vote for Rattle and Roll, but hey, what are you going to do? All right, so now I made a case actually for him in top 3 of older dirt mail just because of that back-to-back Pimlico special and then running back at Churchill 2 weeks later. That Pimlico special crushing many dreams, right, John?
Well, back in June, I was.
So it's John's connection. All right. And Dan, you seem to not like my pick of Rattle and Roll in the top 3.
Is Rattle and Roll. You know, there used to be an old saying, this is way before your time when the Giants and Dodgers were, battling it out in the 1920s or so. And Bill Terry, the great Hall of Fame first baseman for the New York Giants, would be asked about the Dodgers. And he'd say, the Dodgers still in the league? And I want to know, is Rattle and Roll still in the league? I mean, I guess he's coming back. He ran an okay race in the Pimlico Special. I dare you to tell me who John can, but I dare you to tell me who ran second in the Pimlico Special. And he has
speed bias because he cost me about $2,000 by not getting his nose out.
It sounds about right. It is the one race that I saw in person this year where I was there and I watched it and they told me who the winner was and I didn't believe them at all. Like there was no chance.
I mean, you're telling me that Elite Power isn't a finalist for Horse of the Year? I mean, not going to win.
It should be.
But, I think you've got 3 finalists for Horse of the Year, and I think that they're Cody's Wish, White Abarrio, and Elite Power, and Idiomatic will be a very deserving older filly and mare champion.
Yeah. There you go. All right. Well, enough Eclipse talk. Let's get into what we are here to do, which is to talk Maryland Circuit, get you ahead and ready for the road to the Preakness. Just so everybody knows, it's a little different than the road to the Kentucky Derby. There's a point system associated with the Derby and those sorts of things. The Maryland Jockey Club puts together this road starting this weekend with 2 races. The race for the girls is called the Gin Talking. That'll be race 7 on Saturday. And, of course, the Heft is the race for the boys on Saturday as well. That'll be race 8. Both races are 7 furlongs, so you'll see them get progressively longer, as the races go along. Frankly, Maryland has the most logical path to its Derby race, the Preakness, and so we will be cataloging that once a month with the two guys that you see here, and hopefully Mike will show back up at some point on this show. All right, so let's get into it. We'll talk late pit 4 here as we go into it in just a minute. But Dan, I wanted to ask you, lots of different ways to talk about this. One of the things we try to do in the fall is predict which 2-year-olds are going to become good 3-year-olds, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's pretty hard to do, frankly, especially on the Colt side. Seems like there's a little more consistency on the Philly side, but of course, last year showed us that we didn't know anything. And so what is Dan Illman looking for this time of year for 2-year-olds?
I'm looking for a horse that's active, that's on the work tab, that hasn't been put away and has disappeared for a while, a horse that has shown ability to go 2 turns, a horse with a stout pedigree and solid connections. And I would have to say Locked is a horse that I'm really looking forward to seeing as a 3-year-old for Todd Pletcher, because he's already back on the tab. He looked so good in his races leading up to the Breeders' Cup. And I'm just not sure that Santa Anita surface, which can be hard and speed favoring, really played to his strengths in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. So if ever a horse gets a mulligan for a Breeders' Cup race, I think it's Locked. And if you're looking for just a crazy horse, we've seen Japanese horses in the Kentucky Derby the last few years. There's a pretty good one out there named Forever Young. He's 3 for 3. He's the points leader right now on the Japan Road to the Triple Crown. 2 wins at a mile and an eighth, 1 win at a mile. His trainer was the guy that won the 2 Breeders' Cup races back at Del Mar, so at least he knows how to ship and win. I think he's a little bit better than Derma Sotogake. We'll see if he runs.
There you go. How about for John Piasek? What are you looking for in a 2-year-old this time of year?
I would say pretty much anyone who's already won around 2 turns, I think is a big help. And anyone who I would say ended their season with a career best figure. Because you don't want to have peak by now. God knows how much money has already been burned on horses who won big races in like August or September, and then they get bet in the Derby futures and they end up losing. So I would say look for a horse who's getting good right about now, like Fierceness, for example. I kind of wonder, like, if in all of our haste to try to be clever with Derby horses, if we're kind of glossing over the fact this horse dominated the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, ran one of the biggest figures, if I recall correctly, one of the biggest figures in the race in years. He's trained by high-profile people who know how to get a horse ready, and he might just be so much better than everyone else. You know, like we him and a half a month over this, and then you watch him win and pay like $8, and we're like, well, that's probably easier than it should have been. And I am also, I like Sierra Leone a lot, and next time Dornock runs, or Remsen winner runs, I am taking everything I got in my account that day and betting against him. It was such a bias-aided win in the Remsen. I think he's getting a lot of hype because he's Mage's brother. And people are... And I saw so many takes on Twitter. In fact, Dan and I watched that race together in the Laurel Winter Circuit. And we saw so many takes on Twitter like, oh, man, you know, he's got so much guts. He's got so much heart. And I'm like, he rode the bias. He's a fade next time. But I do like Sierra Leone because he ran a big race against the bias.
Yeah, I think Sierra Leone is absolutely, if we're betting on the next couple of months, I would bet on Sierra Leone. I agree with that almost for sure. All right, well, let's get into it. It is the road to the Preakness here on the Horse Racing Happy Hour. Happy to have our 2 guys back in this year to follow along. Which Preakness edition is it this year? Are we at like 148?
Contrary to popular belief, I haven't been to all of them. John would know.
I believe we're talking about, I did lose track. I think this is 149. Let me double check.
Okay. Right now. All right. So we'll do Derby 150, and then 2 weeks later, we'll do Preakness 149, one of my favorite 3-week stretches of the year for sure. And so looking forward to all the travel and all those things. Let's go ahead. We'll start with race 6 on the card out there at Laurel on Saturday. It is a maiden 30 going 6 furlongs on the dirt course. This is for for maidens 3, 4, and 5 years old, not just for fillies, but usually on the guy side here. Is maiden 30 the highest level of maiden claimer on the MJC, or is there one above this?
There's maiden 45s, but in a maiden 45 race, if you're a Maryland bred, you don't have to be in for the claiming tag. And
God,
generally, those races are as strong as straight maidens. So I would say, as far as pure maiden claimers go, there's a much, much bigger jump from 30 to 45 than there is 45 to straight maidens.
Got it. All right. Well, we'll start with that race. Like I said, 6 furlongs on the dirt here. Lots of different ways to go. We do have a favorite in this race under Javion Toledo for trainer Horacio de Paz. Raced once in open company at Aqueduct in a maiden special. Coming back second time down, that is the 9 Common Prosperity. Dan, who are we using to beat Common Prosperity?
I'm going to use Super Bourbon, and if you're going to beat Common Prosperity or any horse on the Maryland circuit, why not with a Brittany Russell trained horse, especially a third-time starter on dirt? She's 6 for her last 8 with a big ROI with those kind of horses. And we talked about the step up in class from the 30 to the waiver 45. This horse is going the other way, dropping out of the 45 into the 30 with some tactical speed, sort of down on the inside last time out. And I'm not sure that's where Super Bourbon really wanted to be. It was a quality race. The runner up came back to win with a big figure, something like an 82 buyer, winning by about 7 lengths.
And John, I know you have a longer shot that you like in this one. Who are you going to be using on top here in race 6?
Yes, I do like Super Bourbon as well, for the reasons Dan mentioned. However, my top pick is going to be on the inside. Number 1, Box of Rockets, 20-1 on the morning line for Bobby Plummer and Carlos Lopez. This one just at the start of his debut, and he got fairly well bet on his debut. He ended up going off at about 7-1. Looked like it was going to be a total disaster. He broke kind of slow, dropped over to the inside. He was way behind early, but he made up a lot of really good ground, kind of got the picture late, and that sometimes happens with young horses. They won't quite know what they're doing at first, and then late in the race on debut, they're kind of like, oh yeah, this is what it's all about. And he closed well. He got fourth, not a particularly close fourth, but it was still a pretty solid effort. Only lost third by about 2 lengths. Ran a decent figure on the Brisnet scale. He ran a 67. Had some good workouts since then. Went 3 furlongs in Pimlico at Pimlico last Saturday in 37 seconds flat. Don't know if he's most likely winner, but in a race like this, crazy things can happen. Horses can improve suddenly, and I think he's the clear-cut long shot play of, I think, the whole day, not just this race.
What do you think of the Jamie Ness runner here, the 5 Guapo Ness, Dan? Coming in, long layoff, but going back route to sprint here. I know that's an angle that you do like. Is this too much of a layoff here? Do you think this is just a race to get a race?
I don't think there's a race to get a race when you're at this $30,000 level. You look at Jamie Ness's stats, and almost all of them are good. Just lately, I'm not a fan of his horses coming off long layoffs, especially those of the 6-month variety, which is what we're getting from Guapo Ness here. Plus, his go-to rider, Jamie Rodriguez, was listed on the overnight on both Guapo Ness and Brushback, and it appears Jamie decided to go with the Ness-trained first-time starter, Brushback. Guapo Ness is getting Lasix for the first time, and he is cutting back in distance with some speed, but considering the connections, just Jamie alone takes money, I might try to fade this horse a little bit.
There you go. All right, so let's move on to the 7th race. This is our Black-Eyed Susan prep for the weekend, the Gin Talking for 2-year-old fillies. Going 7 furlongs on the dirt down there at Laurel Park. $100,000 in the kitty here. And John, remind everyone, do you have to be a Maryland bred to be involved in these races this weekend?
No, you do not. All these races we'll be covering are open stakes. That being said, there are plenty of Maryland breds in these races, including in this race the filly who won a Maryland Juvenile Filly Stakes in her last start, Kissed by an Angel, number 6.
There you go. The 6 Kissed by an Angel is your winner of that Maryland Juvenile Fillies. Back at the beginning of December. Dan, a smaller field of 7 here, but an interesting one. I think a lot of different directions that you could go.
Certainly, plenty of speed with a horse like the 2 Carmelina, and a horse that's going to come from off the pace is the undefeated 4 Cap Classique for the aforementioned Brittany Russell. Personally, I'm not sure there's a lot of pace in this race, and I think that helps a horse like Carmelina, who's been pretty well traveled already as a 2-year-old. She's raced at Park, Saratoga, Colonial, Laurel, and Penn National. I talked to Butch Reed earlier today. He says the key with Carmelina is getting her relaxed in the paddock and in the warm-up. It's something I'm going to be taking a look at because she often gets very, very antsy. He was pleased with how she behaved at Penn National last time out, and she just dominated that field in the Shamrock Rose against PA breds. I think she's the speed. She's going to have to navigate 7/8 for the first time, but maybe she gets a breather down the backstretch.
It's interesting. Carmelina from that Into Mischief line, Cap Classique, a daughter of Vino Rosso, obviously the Curlin line there, John. Both of those scream 2 turns eventually when we get to the spring. Do you think those are the 2 to beat?
I would say so. I mean, on paper, Carmelina is much faster than, I think, Kissed by an Angel early on. I think Kissed by an Angel might want to go a little further. I mean, yes, she won at 7 furlongs last time out. This is a pretty big. I think. I think there's anybody.
All right, John.
In that last race.
All right, get a little tech issue with John. John, do me a favor. Go ahead and reconnect, man. We'll get you back in here. Dan, he mentioned the Maryland bed. Kissed. Was it Kissed by an Angel? How much of a shot do you give Kissed by an Angel?
I thought Kissed by an Angel handled a very weak field in that Maryland bred race last time out, and also had just the easiest trips. Take a look at those fractions, Louie. 24 and 148 and change for a sprint race, and this horse was able to relax up front. That's not happening on Saturday with Carmelina, with her speed breaking to the inside. Kissed by an Angel is much improved. Just to consider, she was claimed for $12,500. Right. For a career debut, but this is a pretty tall ask, I think, because not only does she have to beat Carmelina, she has to beat Cap Classique, who's just been a very professional 2-year-old. You see a lot of these 2-year-olds that like Carmelina, aren't they? Speed crazy, they love to go to the front, and they're just more brilliant than their competition. Cap Classique rates and finishes in the manner of an older horse, and I think this extra distance right up her alley.
There you go. All right. Well, we will get now into the Preakness prep. It is the heft. It's a $100,000 race here, 7 furlongs on the dirt. As I mentioned, you do get the shorter races now, and that will lead into the 2-turn Tessio as we get into the spring. Dan, I mean, look, Sweet Saudi J's in here for the Ginter barn, but of course, standing out there, winner on first asking by 7,800 lengths was Great Opportunity the 4, but that was in the slop. We're going to have cold but dry conditions on Saturday. Is that your favorite for Saturday, or are we wondering if that was a wet number?
I think he's going to be the horse to beat, but you're absolutely right. It was not only wet conditions, it was on a 1-turn mile. I'm talking to Brittany earlier today. This is a great big horse, and Brittany was looking forward to running this horse a distance of ground first time out. So she's cutting this one back to a sharp 7/8 of a mile. And just looking off the cold dope, while Great Opportunities career debut is super impressive with a solid speed figure, Catahoula Moon has run faster, I believe, in his last 3 starts, including his most recent race where he was involved in a vicious speed duel, put the favorite away, and then just was run down late. You go back to Catahoula Moon's big performance 3 starts back. That was a rate and finish job in the Maryland Million. I think Catahoula Moon is going to revert to those tactics, but I also think Great Opportunity is going to get the jump on that horse turning for home. It's going to be about price for me. Great Opportunity is very short on the morning line. I think it's going to even out a little bit more. I give Great Opportunity a slight nod.
And in this sequence, is Great Opportunity the single opportunity, or do you think that you have to play both in this race?
Oh boy, it kind of depends on where else I want to go. I think in a situation like this, you always want to play. You either single the favorite or you're just trying to find bombs. But I'm not even sure who's going to be the favorite in this race. I prefer the Opportunity. I'm not sure if I would single her or not just yet, but I think she would get more weight if I was weighting my wagers from an ABC standpoint over Catahoula Moon.
There you go. Great Opportunity, of course, the son of Connect. Warfront on mom's side. You do have in Catahoula Moon, a son of Golden Lad. How about that? Maryland bred there, Malibu Moon on the mom's side. They closed the race, closed the card, Dan, with a really competitive 12-5 claimer, 5.5 furlongs on the dirt course here. Nice field of 9. Should be an interesting one to close the card, like I mentioned. Gabriel 7 in here, a prohibitive 2-1 favorite. I think if that horse runs even slightly better than last time, Dan, I want to get the Gelding. he probably wins the race.
He's the horse to beat, and it looked like he was going to win the race last time out. Now, keep an ear out for some equipment changes there. I'm not sure this horse wore blinkers last time out, and I think he's going to wear them for the first time on Saturday. So watch the replay and drop me a note on Twitter if I'm wrong. But I think Gabriel 7 raced without blinkers, may get him on Saturday. He loomed boldly at the top of the stretch, and when he was asked with a right-handed stick, he popped to his left lead, drifted in, and I think that cost him a lot of momentum. He eventually gathered himself, got past the pace setter, and then a horse just rolled up the rail and nipped him on the line. It was a brutal beat for Gabriel 7, who is the horse to beat, but I'm not sure he's the kind of horse I want to single in here. There are some others that are interesting. Uncle Chinito was the speed of that race. That was the horse that Gabriel 7 went by, and Uncle Chinito went very fast on the lead in that spot. I'm not sure Uncle Chinito's getting the lead in here because I think the 2 burning up the dough is going to show some speed, so maybe a rate and finish job will work for him. Mini Speightster was the disappointment last time, and maybe if you're looking for a price in this race, you lean towards this Jamie Ness, Jamie Rodriguez production because they were very aggressive with Mini Speightster last time out, going 6 furlongs, battled it out with Uncle Chinito, simply wasn't fast enough, was outpaced and finished evenly. This time he rates and finishes. But this race is interesting. You can go a lot of different ways, so this could be the spread if you want to find a single in some of the shorter fields.
Yeah. Any chance that ABC Ya shows up for a second run here under Rosado? Sometimes I love to play a second timer that, sometimes they just figure it out. Terrible conditions at Delaware last out. Is that the kind of horse coming off the claim here has been working it at Laurel that might actually have something to say here?
I can't knock any long shot in this race. ABC, they saw enough to claim him out of his debut, which is pretty much something in its own right. And they gave this horse a break afterwards. And I have a feeling we're going to see a more mature individual. Going back to that Delaware race, he just got wired in a slow-paced race. He really just didn't have anything to run at. This barn scored with a horse off about a 4-month layoff here earlier in the month, so they can do it. And I won't be surprised if this pace heats up and he gets a much better situation. So you might want to look for a horse like that, or at least use one like that in a race like this.
There you go. Well, he's Dan Illman at DRF _Dan Illman on Twitter. Dan, what are you cooking up for this weekend? You guys looking at Gulfstream? What are you guys doing?
Well, we're taking a look at Gulfstream. We're taking a look at Oaklawn. We're taking a look at Aqueduct. We're taking a look at Santa Anita, weather permitting, because they're actually expecting some rain at the Great Race Place on Saturday morning. And I'll be down at Laurel covering these 2 stakes races for DRF. So you can check me out again on Twitter, DRF _Dan Illman, DRF.com, Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for video previews.
Dan's preview of the American Oaks was free money the other day, by the way, just complete free money. So it was good stuff there. There you go. Anisette is one of those horses this year. When I was talking with Steve earlier, the 3-year-old class, it reeks of what could have been just over and over and over again, especially on the guy side. But Anisette's one of those horses, just a couple more. Frankly, if her year is 2 lengths different, she's got 3 more wins.
No, she has that powerful kick, doesn't she? That's very exciting in these races. But I think in the American Oaks, she showed that she doesn't have to be pace compromised. They didn't go fast in front of her. She stayed close. And once she tipped out, there was no way she was losing. We saw some really nice racing at Santa Anita on opening day. I mean, Baffert running 1-2 in the Malibu. I think Speedboat Beach is kind of an interesting horse. Does Bob try to keep him sprinting? Does he look for a race like the Met Mile? Does he dare stretch him out in distance, something he hasn't done, despite this horse running some very fast races on dirt? He's kind of a fascinating contender.
Yeah, Speedboat Beach for sure. And a rare turf to dirt for Bob Baffert there as well from his races last year. So there you go. Again, Dan Illman, John Piasek, sorry that we missed him. Ironically, in the best way, John was in his parents' basement, so the internet just didn't work. So there you go. It is what it is. All right, Zach, why don't you go ahead and play that music? We will get out of here. We will keep these episodes going, like I said, once a month here on the road to the Preakness. Get you ready for that third Saturday in May down there at Old Hilltop in Baltimore. So I'm Louie Rabeau at Radio Louie on Twitter. You can find our show at Horse Happy Hour if you are so inclined. Zach, play us out, and we will see you next time on Horse Happy Hour.